Hi guys, in this tutorial we're going to add some interaction with our trigger. So currently our trigger is activated or triggered when we collide with it. What we want to do is collide with it, but also press a button or a key. And in our first-person character blueprint, we already have debug action set up, which just prints debug action string to the screen. So we might want to reuse that. Let's go ahead and open the trigger blueprint. In the event graph, you'll see something like that, which we did last time. So when we collide with it, it shoots, well, it gets all the platforms and then makes them shoot. So let's get rid of that. And we're going to add a custom event, which we're able to then call ourselves on interact event. How about that? So when we interact with it, trigger box is going to do something. That should be it for the trigger blueprint. Let's go to the first-person character blueprint. And the thing that we're going to use is sphere overlap actors. It creates a sphere and it checks for overlapping actors. So it's like a collision sphere. The sphere position and radius we're going to modify. These are self-explanatory. Object types, it's the types with which we can collide. That will be world dynamic. And then we can also select the actor class filter, which allows us to filter out the things that we don't want and only have the actor class that we do want, which is of type trigger, if you remember from the blueprint, which is located over here in this game. The sphere position, let's go and use our character's position. Right click, get actor location. That'll give us our first person character's location. Just place it there. Sphere radius, I don't know. Let's go with 350. Object types, we're going to drag a pin from that to create an array. And that array is going to have just one element in it, going to called world dynamic. Actor class, well, we know that we're going to we want to add interaction with just the trigger type. So if you type trigger, that will filter by that class. So what we get back is an array. Unfortunately, the array is very generic. It gives us actor object references rather than trigger object references. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast, and that's like taking an object of generic type and then saying, hey, you know that you are a trigger. And then you can also kind of double check, are you a trigger kind of thing? And if it says yes, if it thinks it's a trigger, then we can do something with it. And well, this is an array, so we'll do this for each loop. But before we can do this for each loop, we should probably check if there is any actor that actually collided. And there is a nice Boolean return value which we can use in a branch. So that branch is essentially if collision occurred, then and else. So if true, then we do the iteration. If false, we do nothing. Array element, this is actor object reference, which we're going to cast. And if you type cast, you can see that there are many different types that you can cast to. But we know we filtered by type trigger. So we're going to cast a trigger. So we're kind of enforcing on the actor saying, hey, you're a trigger, Harry. And if actor agrees, then it calls this. If the actor disagrees and says, no, I'm not a trigger, then cast fails. In Java, you'd get class cast exception. But in UE4 you have a way to kind of handle this case as well. So cast a trigger. As trigger, we can now call our onInteract event that we just created. And that is pretty much it, I think. Compile, save. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's have a look. So our trigger is somewhere over here. And when I overlap with that trigger, nothing happens. But if I press G while colliding with a trigger, then the platforms shoot. If I press G again, they do the same thing, but you can kind of see the delay of 1 second as well that we added in a long time ago. And essentially we build something like a cannon button, I guess, cannon trigger button, because if we had a button over here somewhere and we collided with it and pressed G, then we could fire from these platform looking cannons, which we may, cannon it up at some point. Although this is not a kind of traditional interact functionality, because usually in 3D games, when you interact with something, you're actually looking at it. And to do that, we'll need to use something like Raycast, which we might do in the future. But for now, this is sufficient. We've used our sphere to check collision against actors. We provided the dimensions and the position of the sphere. And then we did some array iteration in order to cast the elements, which are generic type actor, to a specific type, which is trigger, and then we can call the event, which we created earlier, which in turn calls all of this, which we covered in a previous tutorial. Next time, we might do something similar, just to get you going on these interactions with objects in the level. And see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.